There is a question that has been bothering me for a while. What has been the most exciting Formula 1 season of all time? But then you are hitting a wall in the shape of how do you determine excitement? It's a very subjective thing. For some, it can be intense duel between two fastest drivers, for others, it's pure chaos when you never know who is going to win the next race, and of course, for some viewers, there's nothing better than watching their favorite driver absolutely dominating the sport. But let's go back to the question how to determine it. Luckily, we live in a world of data, so there are some metrics that can help us define the answer. For example, the most obvious ones were amount of race winners and team winners. But then, instantly, there is a question coming up. What to do with this? And I thought that we need to use a point system for each metric. So how does it work? Let's start with race winners. Obviously, there are no seasons where all the races were won by a single driver, so it doesn't make sense to give a single point to a season where you have 2 winners. And quite frankly, even 3 winners doesn't sound that exciting. So let's start awarding a point for at least 4 winners. 2 points for 5, 4 points for 6, 6 points for 7, and every season that has 8+ winners deserves the maximum of 10 points in that metric. Next one is team winners, and it applies quite similar logic. A season with only 2 teams winning doesn't sound that exciting, so let's start awarding from 3. And since there's at least twice as many drivers as teams, let's be more generous with this metric and give 2 points for 3 different teams, 4 points for 4 teams, 6 points for 5 teams, and 10 points for every season that has more than 6 different winning teams. Okay, these two are quite easy, but what else could be the metric? Where does every winner ends? On a podium. And as we know, podium has enough space for 2 more drivers. Therefore, the next metric is drivers on the podium. But how we will rank this one? Once again, since every race has at least 3 drivers on the podium, we shouldn't award any season with 7 or less drivers on the podium. Therefore, the point system will be the following, and a bit more detailed. 8 drivers on the podium within the season earns a single point. 9 drivers is 2 points, 10 is 3, 11 is 4, 12 is 6, 13 is 8, and any season that has more than 14 different drivers earns 10 points. Well, we have 3 metrics, but it doesn't feel even remotely enough to start making some calculations. So the goal is to find the most exciting season, right? And what could be the more exciting rather than not knowing who is going to win until the last race or even last lap? With that being said, I give you the 4th metric, gap between 1st and 2nd places in driver standings. But you can fairly say, hey Mr. Different Turn, what about different point system throughout the whole Formula 1 history? It's not the same to have 24 points difference between nowadays and 24 years ago. Well said. And we won't be judging by the gap in points. We will be judging by the gap in victories. And this is how this is going to work. If there are more than 3 victories separating 2 first drivers, then we can safely say that it's quite too much and not that exciting. If there are more than 2 victories needed, fair enough, here's your single point, some Formula 1 season. If more than 1 victory, 2 points. If more than 0.5 victory, 4 points. If more than 0.25 victory, 6 points. And finally, if the gap between the 1st and 2nd places are less than 0.25 victory, then such season earns 10 points. Nice, we have 4 already. But still, there should be more things that can help determine excitement from Formula 1 season. So let's make a step back and think about what we love the most in Formula 1. Not sure about you specifically, but for me, it's overtakes. And if you thought that I've calculated the amount of overtakes made in every season, no. This is not the metric I'm thinking of. I think about different types of overtakes in driver standings, and specifically for a season lead. So, amount of season lead swap is the next metric. And obviously, we can easily imagine a situation where the first race of the season has been won by a driver that lost his lead after the next race, so we should not reward a single swap. But 2, it seems fair, because as we may have seen from last couple of years, a situation where one driver is leading the season solely is nothing to be surprised of. So, 2 lead swaps, 1 point, 3 swaps, 2 points, 4 swaps, 3 points, 5 swaps, 4 points, 6 swaps, 6 points, and more than 7 season lead swaps are equal to 10 points. Sounds more exciting already, but I think we're still overlooking something. For example, amount of consecutive race wins. If any driver has won more than 5 races in a row, season doesn't get anything. If one driver wins 4 in a row, it's a single point. If 2 drivers have 4 wins in a row or a single driver has 3 consecutive wins, then it's 2 points. And if there are 0 drivers that has won 3 or more races in a row, then the season scores 4 extra points. Nice, we have 6 metrics already, but I'd like to add 3 more, which are quite straightforward, and they won't be that rewarding, but still they will help us in our calculations. One driver wins 50% of the races. If true, then there are no points. If false, then season earns an extra point. 2 drivers win 80% of the races. Same logic, if yes, then 0, if false, then 1 point has been awarded. And finally, the last metric, did the champion retain his title? If yes, no points. If we had a new world champion that season, also an extra point is going to be added. And yes, the first Formula 1 season got their 1 point by default. I thought it would be unfair for the first season to give 0 just because of technicalities, and since 1951 season and every other seasons had the chance to know what they had to do to overtake this season, I gave the 1950 season a compensation. Okay, every metric has been prepared and described. Let's move on to the purpose of this research, to the most exciting seasons. Let's go with the top 10. But before we start, quick mention that if points amount are equal for multiple seasons, they are ordered by the highest score points in a single metric. Basically, just as it is in Formula 1, if somebody won the race and the other driver has the same amount of points but don't have a victory under his belt, then he has been ranked below. And if multiple seasons have the same amount of points and they are completely identical, then the seasons will be ranked based on the priority of the metric. You're asking, what is the priority? It's the same as the order in which they have been unveiled. Race winners, team winners, drivers on the podium, gap between first and second, season lead swap, consecutive race wins, one driver wins 50% of the races, 2 drivers win 80% of the races, champion retained. Before we jump on the results, I want to address the fact that back in the 50s, 60s and 70s, it was normal to have very short seasons, like 8, 9, 10, 11 races, so if you want to, you can remove the decades that you don't feel are representative to this system. I've decided that let's keep every single one together. And now we can open our top 10. 10th position goes to season 1997. Race winners 4 points, 6 different drivers. Team winners 4 points, 4 different drivers. Drivers on the podium 10 points, 14 plus different drivers. Gap between first and second 0 points. More than 3 victories. Although if Michael Schumacher wasn't disqualified, it would have been 6 extra points, which would have allowed the season to be on 5th place. Season lead swaps 10 points, more than 7 times. Consecutive race wins 4 points. 0 drivers won 3 races in a row. 1 driver won 50% of the races. 1 point, because that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races. 1 point, because that's false as well. Champion retained. Single point. Jacques Villeneuve won his first and only title that season. Total amount of points, 35. 9th position has been taken by 1958 season. Race winners 4 points, 6 different drivers. Team winners 4 points, 4 different teams. Drivers on the podium 10 points, 14 plus different drivers. Gap between first and second 10 points. 1 single point was between Mike Hawthorne and Stirling Moss. Although if all the race results were included, the gap would have been bigger, but the rules were different during that times. Season lead swaps 0 points. Just 1 single lead swap doesn't earn even a single point. Consecutive race wins 4 points. 0 drivers won 3 races in a row. 1 driver won 50% of the races. 1 point because that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races. 1 point because that's false as well. Champion retained. 1 point, as Mike Hawthorne was the one who broke Fangio's 4 consecutive title streak. Total amount of points, 35. Sitting on 8th position is 1974 season. Race winners 6 points, 7 different drivers. Team winners 6 points as well, 5 different teams. Drivers on the podium 10 points, 14 plus different drivers. Gap between first and second 6 points. Even though it were only 3 points between Emerson Fittipaldi and Clay Rigazzoni, it's still more than 0.25 victory. 25 points in that case, since only 9 points were given for the victory at that time. Season lead swaps 4 points, Season lead was swapped 3 times. Consecutive race wins, 4 points. 0 drivers won 3 races in a row. 1 driver won 50% of the races, 1 point because that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races, 1 point because that's false as well. Champion retained, 1 point. Emerson Fittipaldi has won his second title that season. Total amount of points, 39. On 7th position you will find 1976 season. Race winners 6 points, 7 different drivers. Team winners 10 points, 6 plus different teams. Drivers on the podium 6 points, 12 different drivers. Gap between first and second 10 points. Single point has separated James Hunt and Niki Lauda. Season lead swaps 0 points. Season lead was swapped only at the last race. Consecutive race wins 4 points. 0 drivers won 3 races in a row. 1 driver won 50% of the races. 1 point, that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races. 1 point, that's false as well. Champion retained. 1 point. James Hunt has won his only title that season. Total amount of points, 39. Position number 6 has been occupied by 1981 season. Race winners 6 points, 7 different drivers. Team winners 10 points, 6 plus different teams. Drivers on the podium 4 points, 11 different drivers. Gap between first and second 10 points, just a single point between Nelson Piquet and Carlos Reutemann. Season lead swaps 3 points. Season lead was swapped 4 times. Consecutive race wins 4 points. 0 drivers won 3 races in a row. 1 driver won 50% of the races. 1 point, that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races. 1 point, that's false as well. Champion retained. 1 point. Nelson Piquet has won his first title that year. Total amount of points, 40. Season 1977 is on 5th position. Race winners 10 points, 8 different drivers. Team winners 10 points, 6 different teams. Drivers on the podium 10 points, 14 different drivers. Gap between first and second 1 point. More than 2 victories were needed for Jody Scheckter to overtake Niki Lauda. Season lead swaps 2 points. Season lead was swapped 3 times. Consecutive race wins 4 points. 0 drivers won 3 races in a row. 1 driver won 50% of the races. 1 point, that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races. 1 point, that's false as well. Champion retained. 1 point. Niki Lauda has won his second title. Total amount of points, 40. On 4th position there is a season that a lot many viewers are familiar with. 2008 season. Race winners 6 points, 7 different drivers. Team winners 6 points, 5 different teams. Drivers on the podium 10 points, 14 different drivers. Gap between first and second 10 points. Arguably the most dramatic season ending in the Formula 1 history. A single point separating Felipe Massa and Lewis Hamilton. Season lead swaps 4 points. Season lead was swapped 5 times. Consecutive race wins 4 points. 0 drivers won 3 races in a row. 1 driver won 50% of the races. 1 point, that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races. 1 point, that's false as well. Champion retained. 1 point. That season marked the beginning of Lewis Hamilton collecting World Championship titles. Total amount of points, 43. And now we've reached the podium. On 3rd place there is a 1982 season. Race winners 10 points, 10 different drivers. Team winners 10 points, 7 different teams. Drivers on the podium 10 points, 18 different drivers. Gap between first and second 6 points. More than 0.5 victory between Keke Rosberg and Didier Pironi. Season lead swaps 2 points. Season lead was swapped 3 times. Consecutive race wins 4 points. 0 drivers won 3 races in a row. 1 driver won 50% of the races. 1 point, that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races. 1 point, that's false as well. Champion retained 1 point. Keke Rosberg won his only title that year, just like his son Nico would do 34 years later. Total amount of points, 35. Wow, it's going to be hard for the next season to top this one. And on the 2nd place is literally the next season of 1983. Race winners 10 points, 8 different drivers. Team winners 10 points, 6 different teams. Drivers on the podium 6 points, 12 different drivers. Gap between first and second, 10 points. 2 points between Nelson Piquet and Alain Prost. Season-led swaps, 6 points. Season-led was swapped 6 times. Consecutive race wins, 4 points. 0 drivers won 3 races in a row. 1 driver won 50% of the races, 1 point, that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races, 1 point, that's false as well. Champion retained, 1 point. Nelson Piquet has won his second title that season. Total amount of points, 49. And the winner, and the most exciting Formula 1 season is 2012 season. Race winners 10 points, 8 different drivers. Team winners 10 points, 6 different teams. Drivers on the podium 8 points, 13 different drivers. Gap between first and second 10 points. Less than 0.25 victory between Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso. Season-led swaps 10 points. Season-led was swapped 7 times. Consecutive race wins, 1 point, as Sebastian Vettel had won 4 races straight that season. 1 driver won 50% of the races, 1 point, that's false. 2 drivers won 80% of the races, 1 point, that's false as well. Champion retained, 0 points. No extra points since Vettel has won his 3rd consecutive title that year. Total amount of points, 51. If you feel that all of this doesn't match with what you have been thinking about the most exciting season, that's okay. For example, my first experience with the world of Formula 1 has happened in the year 2000. I've instantly started supporting Mika Häkkinen and McLaren Mercedes in his battle against Michael Schumacher. To me, this felt like a very exciting time. And if you go through the list, the 2000 season will sit only on 69th position out of 75. So it can be any season that makes it the most exciting for you. Here, we've used a system based on metrics that provide quite interesting results. All in all, thank you for watching and see you again at different turn.